Yeah, good evening, one and all. Today I am entering into my another interactive session with a renowned psychologist, none other than Dr. Professor Poonam Devdutt from Shobit University. Her current designation, Director, Center of Psychology and Human Behavior, Dean Student Affairs, Shobit Deemed University, Meerut. And giving a brief intro about her is a long-term process for me. I will just give a short intro, and our guest will be introducing herself. She is a renowned psychologist. She is a member of lot of psychological bodies across India. She is having wide years of experience in counseling, student counseling. Then she's practicing psychology. She is an educationalist, and she is also she used to write columns in Times of India and other leading dailies in India. So I welcome you, ma'am. You can give a detailed.
Thank you so much. First of all, it's a great pleasure to be here and to discuss issues of psychological importance with you. You've already given the basic introduction for me. All I can add is that I have been doing a lot of work, not just in teaching and research, but also in the area of counseling as well as organizational training. So we have trained thousands of people in industry, in corporates, in banks, in different aspects of behavioral issues, leadership, motivation, interpersonal relationships, stress management, and so on. With regard to academics, of course, as you have said, I'm director of the Center for Psychology in Shobit University. And this center is known for its research work. We have more than 24 research scholars working in our center in different areas. And in the past year, of course, we've done a lot of research related to the COVID-19 pandemic and the psychological dimensions of this whole issue. So, and of course, as you have said, I write for newspapers as well as appearing on TV programs and so on. So I think that that kind of summarizes what I have been doing.
Yeah, so thanks for your kind introduction for yourself. So we can just start the interactive session. Actually, there is no formality in this procedure. We are just like, it's a friendly interaction, just sharing the doubts, common doubts we are facing in the case of academia, industry, family, stress,
Right.
students. Everywhere we are facing a lot of problems, because I had changed my backdrop to all these specifically for psychology. So here is main, everything is coming into picture there. So myself, I'm Dr. Hari Krishna. I'm working as principal in Holy Grace Academy of Engineering. I am very much passionate about psychology, because now psychology plays a most relevant and important role in our day-to-day life. I consider psychology as a key to open the lock towards the entry into any stream, whether it's corporate, it's academia, it's family, it's relationship, anything. Because we must understand the psychology of the other side, or the industry, or the surroundings. Then only we can, we can develop or we can survive. That is the situation.
Right. Absolutely.
So it's like rain and an umbrella, then sun and an umbrella. We need a that umbrella quality we must modulate according to the wind, according to the dimension, according to the situation. So a psychological person like you will be more adaptable, and you are having your own perspective. So I wish to share your good thoughts with me. So welcome you, man. Let's start.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So my first doubt is that nowadays, let's start. Currently you are in an academic position. So I'm starting a question from academic side. Students are having a lot of stress. Some of the students may not be good in academics, but due to the pressure, they may be joining a course which they do not like. And in between, they are facing a lot of stress. Yes. And a lot of dropouts also. And actually, the total blame will be coming. Their life will be totally in a question mark position. They will be nothing. They are in the society point of view. At the end of the day, they are nothing according to themselves, because they have chosen a path without any passion due to pressure or situation. But sometimes they may be doing well in such situation also. So what is your opinion regarding this?
Yes, first of all, I would like to give my agreement to what you said right at the beginning, that psychology is a discipline which is required everywhere, whether it is an engineer or a doctor or a teacher, or whether somebody is in the armed forces or in sports. You see, psychology is the science of human behavior. So wherever we have humans and human behavior, there we have psychology. So it is very true that people in all walks of life and in every field need some basic knowledge of psychology to negotiate the complicated pathways of the world. Coming then to the issue that you have raised about students and the stress which they face. Again, I am in agreement with you that if a student chooses a discipline or an area of study for which he has no passion or no aptitude, then that is the recipe for trouble and sometimes disaster. I see several students of this kind when I interact with my clients, students who have, due to various pressures, who have taken up a particular line of study, and they are not really, they don't have the aptitude for it, or they do not have any real interest. But they have chosen it because it seems to be the only path which everybody is following. For instance, as you are yourself in the engineering line, and nowadays, the moment a student comes to class 11, he has to start thinking about what stream he will choose. And there is a pressure to take up the science stream because many people feel that there is science, the science stream is superior to other streams. And that puts tremendous pressure on the child that, okay, if I don't take science, then people will think that I'm not good enough, whereas his real interest may lie elsewhere. So, what I want to emphasize here is that we should do away with this caste system in education, that science stream is higher and humanities is lower. Because when you come to it, intelligence and diligence is needed in every field. And also, success comes through every field. It is not necessary that only a science student will be successful. The students with commerce or humanities can be equally successful in life in different spheres. So that is what we focus on when we are in the process of career counseling, that it's important to have an interest and an aptitude for what we choose. If we choose without these two factors being in synchronization, then it will cause stress. The student will either find it very, very difficult. And then when he starts finding it difficult, there can be two reactions. He either withdraws and starts avoiding, or then he keeps struggling. And either way, it's not a healthy situation. So, very true. It's a very valid point that you have raised, that we need to choose an area of study not because everybody else is doing it, but only when we are interested in it and we have an aptitude for it.
Okay, madam, I'm totally agreeing with your perspective. So I'm having one more clarification regarding that. For example, if a student choose the field due to some other interest, like he or she enters into a course because they are just completing their +2, they are joining a college, they don't know much about their career perspectives or much idea or vision
Yeah.
about the career path. But knowingly or unknowingly, the college or the campus will be molding up them. The teachers can be give a lot of support to them. In
Yeah.
lot of situations, teachers can modulate their mind flows as well as the mood variations and
Yeah.
enable them to focus into a subject. And in such situations, I have really faced such experience. Some students, without any interest or something, when they are getting, when some sparks happens,
Yes.
they themselves succeeds in life, getting into good placements, and now there many of them are in abroad. Actually, they join without any interest, but lastly, at the end of the day, they have succeeded. So there
Yes.
comes the role of a teacher, I think. Teacher or a
Very
parent
true.
or a mediator who modulates them or walk along with them rather than walking behind or above, ahead. This a walking of process of togetherness.
Very true. I totally agree with you that sometimes a student takes up a course because he has no particular interest in any field. That also happens. A student comes to me and says that I don't know what I want. I'm not clear about where my interest lies. So that's also perfectly fine. It happens, and there is nothing wrong with that. And what I tell the students is that if you do not have any particular interest and you have chosen a particular course, then the recipe is that you start working in a way that try to get to the depth of that subject. Try to study that subject in depth, not just in a superficial way, not just with the intention of just clearing an exam or a test, but try to really get into the depth of the subject. And you will find that once you go into the depth of a subject and study it in a regular way, you will then start enjoying it. You see, the myth is that we will do well only if, or we will study hard only if we are interested. But the reverse is also true. If you study hard, the interest will come. So, for a vast majority of students who do not have any particular interest to begin with, once they get into a course and they start, being involved with it, then the interest will come. And yes, you have also rightly pointed out that the role of the teacher here is also very important. It happens often that when the teacher is passionate about something, about a subject, and the teacher teaches with passion, the teacher teaches with involvement, then the student, then that passion becomes infectious, and the teacher conveys his passion to the students. So the role of the teacher is also very important in creating an interest in the subject. So it's a reciprocal relationship. So there are different ways, you see, of achieving a good result, a good outcome. The student may be interested, or the student may be hardworking, the teacher may be passionate. All of these will create a positive situation.
Yeah, everything has to happen right thing at the right time. It should be a combination of everything. And
Yes.
in the traditional point of view, we consider teacher as a person who is always lecturing or standing as in a superior position, and student always at the other part, and there is a communication gap. But nowadays the trend has been changed. Now it is like more like a mentor. It is quite,
Yes.
it must be interactive, because
Yes.
at the end of the day our marks is only marked in a paper. Actually, our creative thinking and visualization capability can only makes only help in moving forward. That is what I
Right.
have felt for the long years, because the main problem is that while clearing a university exam is quite easy, it's common for it can happen, but understanding in our own perspective, that
Yes.
visualization must have. So actually, as you mentioned, the teacher also must have that visualization, and it must be a journey to convert the pressure into pressure. Then only
Yes.
actually finally we will be getting the end result.
Right.
So yeah, so let we hope that it will be happening, because nowadays the new education policy is coming, and we are all undergoing a drastic change, and transformation is the
Right.
need of the hour, and it has to happen. We need to transform, and we have to move along with the changes, otherwise we will be idle.
Very
So
true.
yeah, so yeah, tell me.
Yes, so I would say that the role of the teacher, you see, there's a lot of debate now about the role of the teacher, because we all know that a lot of knowledge earlier, what was happening, the teacher was the repository of the knowledge. The teacher had the knowledge and he was sharing it with the student, imparting it to the students. Now the knowledge is everywhere. The greatest knowledge provider has become Google and all kinds of social media and other platforms. So knowledge is now available freely at the click of a button. But does that mean that the role of the teacher has become irrelevant? And my answer is always no. The role of the teacher has not become irrelevant. It may have changed slightly. So from imparting of knowledge, it has become the role of a guide and a mentor. A mentor who shows the path as to what are the correct sources of knowledge, because yes, there's a lot of false information also floating around. So the teacher has to guide the student as to what are the correct sources of knowledge, and the student can then take that knowledge. Another role of the teacher is to connect the knowledge with daily life, with everyday life, and show the relevance of that knowledge to the life of a student. Very often, students lose interest because they think that what I'm studying in the books, what I'm studying in the classroom, it is not connected to what I am doing today or what I will be doing tomorrow in my work life. So that's where the role of the teacher comes in again, to make that connection between the real life situations and the theoretical knowledge. And that is when the student will develop the interest. And also it's important for him to learn the practical side. As you talked about the new education policy, there's a lot of emphasis on skill development. So whereas earlier the system of teaching was such that theoretical knowledge was given primacy, now it is the application of that knowledge and how we develop the skills of using that knowledge to solve real life problems. So yes, things are changing and we have to adapt and accommodate according to that, but it's a change for the better, certainly.
Okay, so the school level or college level discussion is over. Now we are changing into another perspective. The thing is that nowadays we can see or whether it's student, it's a adult, or it can be a professional, anyone. Emotional stability is very big due to the social media. All are addicted, and we are not having much patience. Always we are restless in many means. So such situation is our characteristic changes are happening very much in a minute second. Many things can change our life. So what is your opinion regarding this? Because nowadays students or whoever it may be, we are not able to face a small failures in life. We are scared of failures, but actually we have to face it. Then only we will be moving ahead. But we are so much dependent on the society, what he or she will be thinking, what the society will be thinking. Actually, the person who is telling don't know what is so-called society. But that is the current situation. So what is your
Right.
perspective?
I'm glad you've touched on a very, very important issue, and that is the role of emotions in our life. So, emotions are strong feelings which have a physiological component. So, every strong emotion leads to certain changes in our body. And uh, emotions are important, they are an indispensable part of our life and our psychological makeup. We are born with emotional tendencies. So but what we have to understand is that emotions have a very important role to play. What are these roles? Emotions give direction to our behavior. What do I mean by that? So if you like something, you will move towards it. If you dislike something, you will move against it. And very often, when we dislike something, we even try to remove or destroy that thing or remove it from our life. So, in which direction our behavior is moving depends upon our emotions. Secondly, emotions influence our decision making. You see, we think that most of that we make decisions in a rational way, but if you analyze closely, you will find that again, so many of our decisions are based not on true rationality but on what we like and dislike. So like again, the choice of subject, choice of subjects, for instance, a student will say I like this subject or I do not like that subject. So emotions influence our decisions. Another very important role of emotions is that they provide energy in our life. So if you, again, to take an example, if you love your friend, or if you love a family member, or a mother loves her child, then you're prepared to do anything for that person. You are prepared to face discomfort or hardships for that person. Or you, if you, you know, if a friend is in trouble and you are attached to that friend, you will go to great extremes to help that person. So emotions provide energy, to the emotions energize our behavior. And you can experience this if you have ever been very, very angry. You can feel that upsurge of energy inside you. You know, what do you, so, and that's how people shout and scream, or they hit out, or they throw things, or what. Why? Because there's that sudden upsurge of energy in the body, and that energy has to be discharged. So this is the role of emotions. And of course, our emotion, the way we regulate our emotions, will influence our relationships, whether it is a relationship at work or whether it is a relationship in the family. Our emotion regulation influences our relationships. So this is the importance of emotions. And definitely nowadays we talk about emotional competence or emotional quotient. So emotional quotient is the ability, the extent to which a person is able to regulate his emotions, understand his emotions, and understand the emotions of others and react to them in an appropriate way. So this is a skill which is extremely important if we want to have a smooth life and smooth relationships both at work. You will see that so many tensions that we have are due to poor emotional regulation. So a boss who is not able to control his anger, a subordinate who's not able to control his anger, a spouse or a parent who's not able to control his anger will be such a source of trouble to everyone around him. And it's not just anger. Emotion regulation also deals with how we deal with our fears, how we deal with our grief and our sadness, how we deal with our joy and happiness. So there are appropriate ways of expressing emotions and inappropriate ways of expressing emotions, and that is what emotional competence or emotional quotient is all about.
And while mentioning in detail about these, you have mentioned one thing, the abstract thing, that love between a mother to a child, a father to a child, or between the spouse or between the friends. So whatever be the struggles or whatever be the situation, if that foundation is strong,
Yes.
that unity will be there, that adaptivity will be there, whatever, whether it's their emotions are modulating in such a way also, that vibrations will be modulated, and somewhat at the end of the day, everything will be packed in a good manner because the abstract, the foundation is strong, that bonding is
True.
strong. But in the other case, if the bonding is not strong, the blame game start playing, that he is not good, she is not good, they are not
Yes.
competent, they are incompetent, their job is not good, their profile is not good,
Yes.
because we are finding the minute mistake and we are highlighting, and we are always relating it with the society, or we are trying to exhibit to down to actually to degrade the other person. Similarly, in everywhere we can see such a situation, but actually you had mentioned it very clearly, that foundation, if some strong foundation is there, whatever it may be, it will be normalized and the building will be strong.
True.
Similarly, the relationships.
Yes. Very true.
Yeah.
You see, our relationships
Because
again,
yeah,
yeah, our relationships also are very important in our life. So the extent to which we are satisfied or the extent to which we are happy, generally happy with our life, will depend upon our relationships.
yeah,
And these relationships are personal relationships as well as relationships at work. So why are relationships important? Because, well, it's almost a cliche to say that we are social animals. Yes, we are humans, and we live in aggregates, we live in groups. We cannot survive in isolation. And when we study human needs, you see, human needs are there present like a hierarchy. For example, we have our fundamental needs, we have the basic needs of survival, then we have the need for safety and security, and then we have the need for belongingness. We call it need affiliation or belongingness, and that refers to our social relationships. So of course the most fundamental need for any living creature is to survive, which means hunger, thirst, and so on. and to be secure. But beyond that, beyond survival, so life is not just about survival, life goes beyond survival. And when we go beyond survival, then we need other people. We need to be related to, we need to feel belonged. We need to feel that, yes, this is my family or my people or, my group. So for that, again, we need to build positive relationships. If our relationships are negative, it will again lead to a lot of problems in life. And
Yeah,
I think
exactly. Yeah.
this brings us to another issue, and that is of a positive attitude. As you said, that very often we start finding fault. We find fault with everybody in our, the spouse is not good, spouse is not earning enough, the relations are, our extended family is not good, or our colleagues are not good. So we need to realize that, yes, there will be certain likes and dislikes, that's normal. But we also need to understand that nobody is perfect. We all have
Exactly.
some positive points and some negative points. Now, what is my tendency? Do I always look at the negative side? Do I always look at everybody's shortcomings? Or do I see the positive in every person? So that depends on my attitude. If I have a positive attitude, I will try to find out the positive in every situation. And if I have a negative attitude, then I will succeed in finding fault with the best of situations and with the best of people. So that is where the importance of positive attitude comes in. And it's a positive attitude alone which is going to keep us in a state of happiness and balance.
Exactly, I'm joining with this because it was a clear-cut definition and detailing of this abstract idea that positiveness, that we have to face everything in a positive manner. And it was quite, everything is quite crystal clear now. And one more thing, for example, we are taking some advantage of some people because whether it may be friends, mother, son, father, daughter, mother, daughter, or the spouse, whatever it may be, they are having an extra space. So they are taking that freedom, whether it may be, there is no formality. They can talk in an informal way, they can behave in an informal way, because everywhere that formality, we are using that formality, but in our house, our space, we can avoid that formality. So that space is quite unique, and it has to be like that. Then only that will survive. And there comes the happiness, the positivity, everything. So it was very clear. So we can just move to the other part now. Recently, we had seen all the social medias or the current news and all. People are having a tendency to simply blaming others without knowing anything. They'll be simply posting something. He or she is like this, degrading others in order to get a public likes or public prominence. Simply telling something without knowing the fact. Like telling him because he or she may not be knowing exactly what is the content or what has happened or what he or she is, but simply blaming or simply posting without knowing the fact. What is your opinion? What is the mental status or the stages of such people? Kindly explain.
Okay. Yes, what the issue that you have raised is very valid and very relevant, because this is happening a lot on social media. Of course,
And
there are a
one
lot
more
of.
thing I want to add, especially some people are very much educated, lot are also doing this. There is no
Yes.
discrimination in this. They are socially and educationally, they are well qualified, but their mentally, their education is very low in such situations. So
Yes.
please. Yeah.
Yes, you brought up education, and one thing that I would like to say here is that, in my experience, education has very little to do with whether a person is a good person or not a very good
Exactly,
person.
exactly.
You can find some very, very highly educated people, but they may be very, very negative in their attitude. And there may be some people who are absolutely illiterate or very educated in a minimal way, and they may be very, very positive. So there is a low correlation between education and positivity. But yes, we expect that a person who is educated will be more aware of all these things. But again, as you say, in social media, we see a vast number of people, I would say, who are using social media in a negative way. Now, you have said that you asked me what could be the reason, and my answer is that there are multiple reasons for this, and different people may be doing it for different reasons. You see, sometimes it may be political because some people try to pursue a political agenda, trying to pull down people with a different political orientation, and that is the motive behind a lot of negativity on the social media. So that is one. But apart from that, there are other reasons, and one of the reasons from the psychological viewpoint which I find is that, you see, all of us have certain negative tendencies inside us. But what do I mean by negative tendencies? We may have a hidden anger, we may have a hidden aggression, which we are not able to channelize in the right way. And social media has given us the anonymity to be able to express our anger and yet be hidden. So you see, a lot of people make fake IDs, fake profiles, and then they use those fake profiles to post a lot of negative content in any group or wherever they are, wherever they are able to get an entry. So what is happening that, you see, because when, as I just said, that emotions are a part of our psychological makeup, and some emotions like anger can sometimes, if they are not regulated properly or they're not channelized properly, then they can cause a lot of trouble. So a person who has got a lot of anger issues may not be able to have the skill of dealing with that anger in the constructive way. Also, he's not able to express his anger face to face with other people, but that
Exactly.
suppressed anger is released in the social platform, because there you are anonymous, or there's no face to face interaction. So it's a safe place, in inverted commas I'm using the word safe.
Yeah,
He
exactly.
can just randomly make negative remarks and discharge his aggression in that way. So that is one reason why this has become so common. You see, in a group when people are talking, then we find it difficult to oppose people face to face, because that's another skill, to disagree in a reasonable way. And
Exactly.
many people
Face-to-face
don't have that
communication.
skill. Yes, in face to face communication, it is very difficult to disagree with a person, because we feel, what will he say, what will be the reaction, he may say something which I don't like, so many considerations. But when you're on social media, then you may feel safe that, okay, I write whatever, I make any comment, and nobody can do anything to me. So that is one reason why this has happened. And then what happens is that if one person writes a negative comment, then that arouses the negativity in other people also.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's how you will find in certain groups that one person posts something which is negative, and then there are so many other answers in the same vein. So what we call trolling on the social media. So all that because it has given us social media provided as a platform to even throw out our negativity. And since it's a relatively new phenomena, we need to learn how to navigate social media also. We need to learn how to protect ourselves. If there is no need to post very personal content on social media, there's no need to post, we should not use it as a hate mongering device. But
Yeah.
people are using it for those purposes. So we need to regulate ourselves and regulate the social media also.
Exactly. It was great answer. I would like to add the word great rather than good. So everything is there within that, and we can move towards the last stage that we had started with the student, then to the professional, then to the daily life, then lastly, the most important thing, decision making with time constraint. For example, I had seen we are having, for example, 3 hours for writing an exam, 1.5 hours for writing the exam. After that, no one will provide us extra time. Otherwise, we had to tell that we are physically some problem is there or mentally some problem we had to prove. Then we will be getting an add-on time. But in life also, there are several situations that within a time constraint, we have to take decision. Otherwise, that value of that problem or that situation will not work it out, will not work out. Because that is the intelligence, which I consider that skill of decision making. And it should be independent, whether if I am taking a decision, it should be from the bottom of my heart. I should not blame others. That
Yeah.
independent decision making skill has to be there, and we are lacking in many means, because many people are thinking, oh, my father, what he did, my mother or my sister, I have to ask to them, I have to, but what the mind is telling will be different. And if they are willing to go with the words of their parents, the sister, the I mean the siblings or the friends, they have to do that. Otherwise, and whatever it may be, that decision has to come within a time limit. What is your opinion?
Again, decision making, you raised the issue of decision making, a very, very important issue, because every step that we take is actually a decision. Every action that we take in our daily life is a decision. What I'm wearing today, what I'm eating today, where I'm going, am I going to my office, or I'm going, or is a student going to his class, or is he bunking class and going elsewhere? Every action is a decision. And yes, there are, of course, certain decisions are routine decisions. Certain decisions become automatic, because if a student knows that, yes, I have to be regular, and he gets up every day and he has that routine. So these decisions become automatic, and that's a good thing, because every time taking up a decision can become very exhausting. So the certain decisions have to be automatic. Also, decision making is a very, very complex process. There are so many things involved. So there is the situation. So we have to take a decision according to the situation. We have to take a decision according to our likes and dislikes. And very often we are influenced by other people as to what will my family want, what is the demand of the situation. So all of these are important, but ultimately there are two things which I would like to say here. One is that, again, decision making is also a skill which can be learned. Many people have trouble making decisions because as they were growing up, they were not given a chance to make decisions for themselves. And this is a part of the socialization process. You see, when a child is growing up, then he learns how to live in society. And that is known as the socialization process. And the agents of socialization are the parents, first of all, and then the school, and then the community, and then the larger community, and so on. So, beginning with the family, do the parents allow the child to take small decisions, or are parents taking all decisions for the child? Do we ask a child, okay, beta, what will you have to drink today? Do you want your milk with Bournvita, or do you want plain milk, or do you want a milkshake today?
Yes.
What would you like to have for dinner? Do you want to have chapati, or do you want to have puri, or do you want to have rice today? Very small things. Or if we are going to for an outing over the weekend, would you like to go to the mall, or would you like to go to the zoo, or would you like to go eat out somewhere? So are we allowing the child to take these small decisions? If we are not, and we are telling the child, beta, wear this, beta, eat this, do this, today we will do this, then, and then all of a sudden when the child comes into class 11 and we say, okay, now you tell me what subject you want to take. So the child he has not learned the skill of decision making. He doesn't know how to take a decision. So that is what happens with many people. And as they go into adulthood, then they start looking, okay, so I don't know how to take a decision. So I see, okay, what is the next person doing? And I will do that. So one is that this skill of decision making has to be taught from childhood. The second is that somehow the society trains us to do what other people are doing. There is a pressure from society to conform. We call it conformity. That means we have to go along with the social requirements and the rules and so on. Now, that's not a bad thing, and it is a necessity when we are living in a society. But at the same time, we are also individuals. So we also need to take into account our individual like and dislike. And apart from like and dislike, and apart from all the logic and reason, there is also something that we call the voice of intuition. And very often, this voice of intuition is ignored or suppressed, or we just learn to, sometimes we're not even aware of it. So, intuition is a little voice at the back of my mind which tells me that, okay, everything is saying go in one direction. There's something inside me which is saying no, but perhaps for me, this other direction is better. So it takes a tremendous amount of courage and strength to go against the established norms, or to go against, or to listen to your voice of intuition sometimes. But that also is a very important factor. So for decision making, yes, it's very important. There are no easy answers, and we have to, it's a skill that we need to learn. And if you have done that, then, as you said, even under time pressure, we will be able to take good decisions. But if we have not developed the skill of decision making, then taking decisions under time pressure will be difficult. So that's a very valid point that you have made.
Yeah, of course. It was a very great session, and I would like to tell personally, I consider it as a great privilege and honor to share a screen as well as this interactive session, because it is a mind opening for many viewers. It will be a mind opening, and it's like not only like just an interaction. It is like I consider it as a treasure hunt, starting from different questions. Each place we have not find out the treasure. Actually, the treasure is keep on moving, and finally we end up in the decision making. That's very important thing, as you had mentioned. And still many more questions are there: what, when, how, and the question are still pointing out, and we are always traveling to find the real question. And there will not be any single day in our life without the question what, when, how, and this question mark. And psychology is always within us, and we by studying or learning or analyzing anything, as we had told, because we are having a good visualization and creativity and long-term experience with the journey of life, and this all these positions, and still now we are in academia. So sharing your vast experience, your vision, your perspective, everything is considered to be treasure. And this interactive session will be definitely beneficial for the people who are watching it, and it can be implemented in our own daily life. So thank you, madam. Thanks for joining me. Thank you very much for spending your valid time.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure interacting with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.